I'm Dave Katz.
I'm Mikey Dobbs.
And I'm Carmen Butler.
And this is
the ATL On Fire podcast show. All right. Hey, everybody. We are live from Wild Heaven Brewery here in Avondale Estates, Georgia.
Very nice.
Dave, Carmen, how are we doing?
Good. How are you? It's a gorgeous day out here at the brewery, so if you're listening live, come on down.
Beautiful day. Gorgeous.
Could not have written it better. So we're here to talk about Atlanta United. We're a week away from starting the season at the Mercedes-Benz against, San Jose Earthquake?
San Jose in the opening game at the Benz, 7:30 next Saturday.
And what's the start time?
7:30.
7:30. So we are going to talk about who we think our starting lineup might be in that game. We're going to talk a little bit about maybe one new signing. We'll talk a little bit about some of the preseason games leading up to our opening game, and also the fact that MLS has yet to determine what their playoff system is, which seems like a big deal as we're only, less than a week from starting the season, and they don't have that sorted out.
Yeah, so my first question to you, Mikey Dobbs, what wine are we drinking?
We are not drinking wine. Again,
I'm just kidding. Kidding.
We are actually at Wild Heaven Brewery,
right?
On the back patio, dog friendly. The beer is flowing, so we're not doing red wine today. We are having some emergency drinking beer or some easy ATL ale.
Cheers! Mm-hmm. Cheers to that.
And in a minute here, we might invite Nick over, who is our sponsor here from Wild Heaven.
Right.
And he's also a part of, I think Footy Mob is the group that he is a part of, and huge Atlanta United fan. He likes to act like he doesn't know what's going on with the club, but he does. So we'll wave him over here in a minute to get his thoughts on the team going into the season.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So you want to start with the starting lineup?
I think so, yeah. So we know that Sosa is certainly out because he's suspended for 2 games, so we can just take him out of the equation. What do you think from all the lead up here? What are your thoughts on who we're going to start?
It seems like the back line is set, right? Guzan is going to be in goal.
You think?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's any chance. You know, it's interesting because he didn't play on Wednesday night, but him and Miles Robinson were clearly rested after a long preseason, and they both started in St. Louis. That was as close to the starting lineup as you might expect to see next Saturday, with the exception that the new guys are still in play for a potential starting lineup. But I think the back is all set. It's going to be Guzan in goal. It's going to be Gutman at left back. It's going to be Robinson and Parata in the center, and it's going to be Lennon on the right. Okay. That's clear.
So without Sosa, who's going to play that kind of pivotal role in front of the back four?
Can we go with nobody?
Yeah, but who is it going to be?
Well, it's going to be Josetu, but he doesn't really play that.
Yeah. I think it has to be, right? And
it's Josetu and Ibarra. We haven't seen any Sejdic all preseason long, so presumably he's got an injury. We haven't heard anything from Atlanta United about it, but he obviously is not going to start if he hasn't played any preseason.
I will say that gives me a little comfort. It's not his position, though, but at least he's a seasoned player. He's got lots of minutes, so hopefully he can figure out a way to mentally...
Josetu, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, Josetu, to figure out, stay a little more defensive-minded. I don't know, though. What do you think?
Well, considering that was the center midfield that got run over in preseason in a bunch of games, including in Chattanooga. Yeah.
And he's also said, Pineda, that he wants Josetu to be more aggressive, right? So he should be on the other side of this equation.
Yeah, well, we'll get to it at the end of the podcast.
So is it Ibarra that's going to be back there in the Sosa position? I think it is.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe you could call it a double pivot, but he sees Josetu as a defensive midfielder, right? So
I don't think so.
Ibarra has been further forward than Josetu for the most part in the preseason.
All right. That doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound right to me either. Because, you need a guy who can get in a tackle, right? And Ibarra is willing to break a guy in half, Carmen, what do you think about our midfield situation?
It seems in flux at best. I keep trying to wish Sosa back somehow, and then the other.
He will be back after 2 games. But one of the things that's interesting, and I think this is the moment to pause and talk about it, right? We mentioned it on an earlier podcast, but I think let's hit it home again, right? So Sosa is obviously not available for the first 2 games, right? But he hasn't played at all in the preseason. He was an emergency starter in Chattanooga, and after the game, Pineda said that he was called into at the last second because of a last-minute injury to the starting lineup, right? There's 3 possibilities. One possibility is that Sosa is nowhere in the equation. He's not even considered a starter, which seems to me nuts.
Yeah.
Right? Second possibility is that he says because he's not ready for the first 2 games, that he's not going to play in preseason basically at all. Or the third possibility is that Sosa picked up a knock in that game, and that's why he hasn't been available the rest of the preseason. What do you think?
I think it's the second to last one there, which is that he just is not starting him because he knows he's on suspension the first 2 games and wants to go with who he thinks needs to be ready on day 1.
What do you think, Carmen? Do you agree?
I'm over here trying to make sure that Elliot can hear us, so I haven't really been what you're saying.
Are we having audio problems?
It sounds like we might be having some audio problems. Elliot says he can't hear, so I'm working on it. But y'all just keep going.
Man. So I hate it when this is our second live disaster.
Disaster is strong.
Yeah, that's a strong word, Mikey.
It is. It's like when you go live and there's no audio, that's a disaster. I think that Sosa's got to be our starter, and I think Pineda thinks the same.
But if that's the case, are you okay with him getting basically no minutes in preseason? Because he wasn't even on the bench against Toluca. He wasn't even on the bench in St. Louis.
No, I think we talked about this on the last podcast. It's like I agreed with you after disagreeing with you that I thought you should play the starters to get ready for game 1. But you're right. I think you should establish the system first so that everybody else kind of knows, here's how Sosa plays. I need to fill in and play in the way that the coach has designed it.
It's almost like it's a punishment. Right, like that, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe the Atlanta United Club decided that, because he was supposedly using a racial slur, that, which he claims that he didn't know was actually a racial slur or whatever, but that they were like, look, not only are you suspended, but you are person non grata until the suspension is over.
Yeah. I don't know.
But in that case, then in the emergency, he played him in Chattanooga, and he played right through that.
Right.
And he said, and maybe that was so weird because he said, that we only did that because an emergency, and maybe that's sort of indicative that he was like, just so you know. But if that's the case, if he really is suspended, you can't go with it no matter what. You got to find somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? It doesn't make sense at all.
So is Etienne going to be available on the left to start?
So Etienne finally made his Atlanta United debut at St. Louis, but off the bench. I would presume that he is available, but with the minutes that he's gotten in preseason, you got to imagine that it's unlikely that he would be starting. Now, this is okay because obviously Caleb Wiley is a very capable, fill-in, if you will. Maybe even Caleb Wiley's the starter. I don't know.
And you're totally confident that Abram is not going to get the start. It's going to be Peralta.
I don't think so. Abram also did make his debut. His visa came through, so he played in St. Louis. You're not allowed to play until you have your visa, so he did show up as a sub off the bench. I would have a hard time saying that you're going to go with a guy who's played 30 minutes or so in preseason as the starter.
Agreed. I think Peralta is the right choice there. So
especially when you have such a logical backup. Now, up front, where we have no options, you might see Giacomakis or Papa Giorgio starting despite the fact that he has not played a minute. Now, his visa is not yet through. The rumor is that it's coming through tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think given what our other options are, you play your talent And that guy.
Now, he's been training.
Yeah.
He's allowed to train, so it's not like he'd be brand new to the squad.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he has not played a minute of preseason.
Now, I'm still going to go with that Ibarra has to be the Sosa fill and Josetu has to be more offensive.
Well,
think
I
that's what
not
we're
disagree with you, but
And then, of course, we've got Almada as the other attacking center mid, and then whether it's Wiley or Etienne.
So Almada is the lock-in as the attacking midfield, and Araujo is the lock as the front of three.
Sure.
For sure.
Now,
so let's just recap it real quick. So I think the starting lineup is Guzan in goal, right? I think it's Gutman on the left. It's Parata and Robinson at center back. It's Lennon on the right. It's Ibarra, Josetu sitting behind at some level Almada. On the left, it's either Wiley or Etienne. I think it's going to be Wiley with Etienne coming off the bench. Up top, if Giacomakis comes through, would be the starter. If not, he was going with Machop Chol, but he is now slight injured with the hamstring, and so you got to figure it's Jackson Conway starting in the first game. And outright is Araujo.
yeah, I would agree. And we have signed another backup striker from DC United, right?
Yes. I have to call
something
up his name.
Miguel
because
Berry, is that something?
I have it. Hold on a second. It's Miguel Berry. That is correct. An MLS veteran. He played last with DC, 14 games and
0 goals.
0 goals.
But let's also know DC United was a dumpster fire last year. So could be part of that, because you were saying he scored at previous clubs, right?
Yes, he played in the MLS previously for Columbus. He had 10 goals in 35 games for them. So that, as a backup, is not too shabby.
Yeah.
But then they released him.
Well, one thing I like, if you look at someone like a Brandon Vasquez, and you judged him on his numbers from his first year or two at Atlanta United, I don't know, is he one of those players? I have no idea. How old is this kid? Or is he past? Is he past that?
No, he's still young.
Still developing. Okay.
Yeah. I don't have his age.
Because you
exactly.
assume they're betting on the up there, that he's got some talent, but it also shows that maybe they don't believe so much in Jackson Conway.
He scored a few goals for San Diego when he was on a loan there in the USL.
Yeah. He's 25.
25.
He's still a kid.
How old is Jackson Conway though? Somewhere around the same age, right?
He's a little 23.
Yeah,
A little younger, but a
little
little
younger.
summer. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, it doesn't tell you that they have a lot of confidence in Jackson Conway. That's for sure. Why sign a guy this late? I mean, unless they're thinking like this guy, their scouting says, he's got real potential, and you just take a flyer on him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, certainly we're desperate for striker options, because even if Giacomakis is, fully available and ready to go, right now he was grooming Machop Chol to be the backup who's never played striker in his entire life. And Jackson Conway's the other backup. None of that inspires confidence.
So going into the starting game next Saturday, we've played, 5 preseason matches, scrimmages.
Mm-hmm.
We've let in 15 goals. In some of those,
But we're emphasizing defense.
We're emphasizing defense. I took a couple polls on Twitter to see if people are concerned about this, and I would say overall 60% of the people are slightly or very concerned about it. 30% not so much. That they're just kind of saying, hey, this is preseason, we're testing things out. But I am concerned about the mindset of allowing the ball to splash in the net 15 times, 3 per game. That's not a good standard or mindset to have, I think, in terms of a team that should just have a little more pride on not letting a ball hit the back of the net that many times. Three per game.
I'm going to split the difference and say I am concerned, but not incredibly concerned, because the concern to me is coming from Guzan not really necessarily showing that he's back, and Robinson not showing that he's back, right? So those guys, presumably, we know they're good players, and they're going to get better as the season goes on. The concern, so that you would say there's not a real concern. That I think there's no doubt that mid-season Guzan and Robinson are going to be legitimate MLS players, right? So from that standpoint, you would be like, the defense is fine. Now, that being said, if they really are not 100% and we struggle out of the gate because they're not ready and Pineda doesn't recognize that and we lose games early, it could be over by the time they're healthy.
Yeah. And look, I mean, these preseason games, we didn't have Sosa, as
who may or may not be a player.
Yeah. So Sosa as well, but we didn't have some of our other starters.
I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter that why did we buy an extra striker? We should have been buying a holding midfielder. I'm like,
what?
I don't know about you, but I think we have one of the best holding midfielders in all of MLS. I am 100% convinced that Sosa is the real deal. Now, He has had some injury issues.
Right.
So when he's not on the field, he's not that good.
Yeah.
But when he's been on the field, he's been terrific.
I absolutely agree.
I mean, he has had some times where he's been asked to do things that a defensive midfielder can never do, and that's just horrible tactics. But that's not on the player.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you were at the AmFam Cup the other night.
Yes.
We didn't get to see anything televised in the last St. Louis game, which
behind closed doors.
Evidently we won 2-1, right? And it was Almada and Araujo got penalty kicks and scored.
No, Almada scored on a penalty kick. Araujo scored from live play again. And
okay, good.
There is a real, Araujo has said over and over and over that he likes the system, he's comfortable, and he's working on being much more of an attacker, much more getting in behind, and he has done that. Now, obviously, you would point to last preseason, he scored a wonder goal, and then didn't really do it in the season.
Right.
But I actually have hope. I had hope last year, too, that I think Araujo is for real. The guy has got everything. He's got skill, he's got power, he's got strength, he's got pace, he can do it all. And to me, barring the tactics not letting him succeed, there is no doubt that as an MLS player, he is a phenomenal MLS player.
I think Araujo's attitude through the year is going to be indicative of the whole Atlanta United season. So follow me here.
That's a good point.
I think if he starts off and starts scoring goals and is able to keep that moving and keep that positivity, that we might find ourselves in a good position come, the fall. If we start to see some turbulence and frustration from Araujo come the summertime, game over. I'm telling you that he will feed into the entire culture of the locker room where he gets pouty-faced. Yeah. And I'm telling you, that'll be it. I agree. If he's smiling come summer, we might have a future come the fall.
I think it's spot on. I really don't have anything to add to that. I think it's absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
A question for you with Araujo. I know people talked about him people looking to get him from us come summer. Is that still a possibility?
Well, there was a rumor that he was leaving that he was in the last couple of weeks that he was leaving to go to South America, right? And there was a bid made. There was an actual bid made.
None of those Argentinian teams or Brazilian teams have enough money to make it worth it for us. So it was just about that, I think, more than anything.
Gotcha.
And
maybe Miss Brazil wanted to leave France to come to the U.S., and now she wants to go even further back to Brazil. It was a Brazilian club.
But Araujo did say he was open to offers.
Yeah.
So, his mind is clearly open to what his...
Well, wouldn't you be, having been through what he's been through here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
It hasn't been good.
It has not been good.
It doesn't suggest that he is giving a huge leash to Pineda, that he's so confident that, whatever.
Yeah. And I don't think he's the strongest minded person either. So, and that's why I was saying his attitude come summertime will be the clear writing on the wall for how the season goes. Because I think he'll, if the tactics aren't working and he's not being set up for what he thinks he was going to come to the MLS to do isn't happening, then it's going to be a disaster.
Well, he came to MLS to dominate.
Yeah.
Thinking that he was just going to run over the league. And I think that's a credit to MLS that it's a lot better than people think. But but that being said, I think he could dominate if he was given the right tactics.
So,
do you want to try and hit a reset on this, or you want to keep going? I think we're having trouble with the live feed.
Oh, I don't know. It says live. We're just not we're having problems with the audio.
I think, yeah.
Click on this little gear here and see if that helps. Go down. Yeah, audio. And what do we have selected? Roadcaster default. Yeah, I don't know.
We're not muted or something,
It
accidentally.
all looks correct.
I don't think so. All three.
We'll have to marry it with the audio.
Can
on
we
the
stop
Roadcaster.
it and try and relive it again? We want to try one?
Yeah, I think that's going to cause a lot of editing issues. So
Okay.
let's persevere.
Okay.
Push on.
All right, we're good.
So
Sorry to you out there.
AmFam Cup, you were there.
Yep.
Anything you want to discuss on what you saw during that game?
Well, I think we're going to do a little bit on the tactic board at the end.
Okay.
But I thought maybe before that we might talk about the fact that there's still no MLS playoff structure. And then maybe, obviously, we got to have Nick over here from the brewery.
So, yeah, let's talk about no MLS playoff structure. I mean, there's been a lot of people who have sounded off on it. I think even Gary Neville went off on MLS. It's not an elite league when you can't even figure out what your playoff system is a week before the season starts. And I got to agree with
Phil
him.
Neville.
Phil
right,
Neville, yeah.
but yes.
One of the Nevilles.
One of the Nevilles. They're twins, man.
They're not twins.
They're not.
They're brothers. They're brothers. They're not twins.
They look
Everybody
so.
thinks that, but
You
they're
have
not.
twins.
I have actual twins.
So, what do you think? I think it is a little suspect.
I think it's
More than suspect.
completely shambolic, right? I mean, how, as a manager, not that you're going to really change your system or whatever, but, you have to know, going into the season what you have a goal for the early part of the season. And part of that is predicated on knowing what the playoff structure is, right? So if I was, Phil Neville, who's a manager, right, I would be pissed too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's amateur hour, right?
Oh, definitely. You would think a league would, by this point, have a playoff system together.
And part of the problem has been, I think, because of the new Apple deal, and you can talk about this most, Mikey Dobbs, because you know it the best, but they want to have a longer playoff schedule with more playoff games. And so the question is, how do you accommodate that?
Yeah. And, Apple is trying to increase their inventory. So what they're proposing, I think the last I heard, was 8 teams from each conference would make the playoffs.
Yep.
And there would be the best of 3 type of.
Best of 3 is what I heard.
So how does that work? Because that's
the early rounds only. So what I had heard is
Right,
when they
early
were
rounds
talking
only.
about best of 3 for the early rounds, and then as you get into
Quarters
probably
or
the
semis,
semifinals and finals would be a single match. A little bit Champions League style.
yeah.
A little bit.
What's
But
the point of a regular season then?
Well, that's always been true in MLS.
Yeah.
But it's certainly very
This is
transparent admission that TV is driving the playoffs.
This is an inventory
Right. Yeah.
inventory driven decision. It is not helping create any sort of drama that was really good in the single elimination playoffs in the MLS last year. So the model was not broken last year because what we got was actually some pretty exciting MLS.
Very exciting games, but
Games.
I actually think, we were very critical of it initially, and I'm still critical of it because it's not the best team that goes through it always in this case.
I don't love the system we were in last year, but I think 8 teams from each conference that make the playoffs, that seems.
But that's only one more team, right? Because weren't we at 7 last year?
Yeah, and that was too many to begin with. So now you're going the wrong way.
Fair.
So,
yeah, I would be in favor of less teams make the playoffs and expanding the playoff format, either back to a 2 or even a 3 game.
because then you're increasing the quality. So now you got better teams,
Right.
And then if you do the best of 3, then that.
I don't know how you
increases
do a
your-
best of 3 either, by the way, because there are ties in this game, people, right? So, in a baseball, you can do the best of 3. But in MLS, right, you can't do a best of 3. What if there's a tie? That means you got to have a shootout to decide or something?
Yeah.
Oh, we
I mean,
Americans love a good shootout.
Now,
though.
in a 2 format, you can do it, right? Because obviously if you win 2 games, you're through. But it's a aggregate score,
Yeah.
right? That's how it's traditionally been. So you could do best of 3 aggregate score, but then you got some crazy, aggregate scoring going on, I guess.
Yeah. Are they going to tell us when they have to make a decision by? Or are they just going to go halfway through the season?
Supposedly, like tomorrow, they're like
they claim it's going to be before the season,
We'll
they're
see.
waiting. They were having an owners meeting or something, and it was going to be finalized for it. I think that was going on yesterday, maybe, or today.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then.
So, all right, Mikey Dobbs, you want to go grab Nick?
I just texted him, so we'll see if he's able to pop over, and I'll give him a wave here.
Okay, I can see him, but
Why don't you talk a little bit about the AmFam Cup game though that you were at?
you want to do a little bit of tactics while we're waiting? I was going to go into tactics afterwards, but I can talk about it. I mean, so the AmFam Cup, we played the starters in the first half, and in the second half we played all of the 17-year-olds. Right now, one thing that was crazy. So he rested both Guzan and Miles Robinson. But they were clearly rested because they've been playing a lot in the injury. They came back for the St. Louis game, right? But what was interesting is in resting Miles Robinson, who was the center back who played? It was Noah Cobb. So Noah Cobb's 17, and he did play well against Chattanooga in the second half. But that was a bit odd.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you would have thought, for example, I mean, that suggests that if we were to have an injury to two of our center backs, so we have three, right? We have Parata, we have Abrams, we have Robinson. If we have an injury to two of them and we're forced to go with another starter, that it wouldn't be Hernandez, who's the obvious choice,
yeah,
right? Or even moving Gutman over and Wiley goes to the left back, which is the obvious second choice, right? Or one of those two is the top choice. The question, Pineda said that it would be Noah Cobb, the 17-year-old, which seems to me, you know, and now Pineda is really into rewarding guys who are playing early in the preseason, but I don't get that at all, right? I mean, yes, you want to reward guys, but if they're not in your plans for the season, you got to, the preseason, first of all, is about getting guys ready for the season, right?
Yeah.
So you want to have as many of the combinations as you can get, right?
Yeah.
So
Here's a top right X on that blue box. Yeah.
So anyway, that was the case. We saw that clearly the backup goalkeeper is Westberg and not Diop. Westberg played in the first half. Diop played in the second half.
So, yeah, let's talk about that for a second because we see Westberg come in, which means opposite of what I thought Diop was going to be the first choice, but clearly in training, Westberg must be winning out in terms of quality. And from what you saw on the field, that seems correct too.
Diop looked really bad. No offense to him, but
we got another Shuttleworth
he
in
was
our hand.
all over. His positioning was all over the place. The goal that we gave up for the winner in the second half was a deflection, and it was a bad deflection that any goalkeeper can give up, but it was a deflection that took place outside of the box, and he was leaning so badly he fell over, and the ball ended up like a foot beside him the other way, and he could never recover. I'm like, you cannot tell me that a world-class goalkeeper wouldn't be agile enough to be leaning a little bit, recover on the other side, and still make that save.
Yeah.
I mean, he came nowhere close to it. He just kind of...
I was about to say, are we really going for world-class goalkeepers at this point for Atlanta United?
Well,
like, I feel like, I don't know.
Guzan was once a
He
world-class
was.
goalkeeper.
I mean, we should be, but I don't feel like we are. That's just, that's how it feels like watching him.
I'm going to go with Westberg makes that save.
Okay. All right.
So that was pretty bad. I mean, the other thing is that Tyler Wolf is clearly still injured. He hasn't played a minute yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why Sosa wasn't at least, even if he's not a starter, why not play him with the reserves? You got to get him minutes, right? Unless he's injured and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
The injuries. I mean, Carmen, you can talk about this. You're our club liaison to the injuries. I mean, they tell us nothing.
They really do. It's always a knock. Like, they might tell us it's a lower half knock or an upper half knock.
I mean, it's borderline irresponsible the way that they, like, look, there's no reason in some of these cases to try to be, like, cagey or strategic about whether some of the players are going to be available to, like, full San Jose and who we're actually going to start. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like other clubs don't actually see and know that they're not playing, right?
Right.
So in the preseason, it's one thing if you're like cagey about it before a game, you don't want them to know to have to plan for it, but they know, they're watching, they can see, it's published on Google, right? The starting lineup is, right? So I don't understand being cagey about it at this point. Like,
Yeah.
what does that do for you? It just gets your fans frustrated.
Now, I will say, are you optimistic? It seems like we're at least creating some goals in preseason. Almada and Araujo seem to be clicking from at least some of the highlights I've seen. They seem to have a better connection. this
Almada
year.
missed a sitter in that game, by
Did
the
he?
way, in the first 3 minutes. Araujo first of all, I would say Araujo has looked for real. He is consistently getting behind. He's said that he is much more dedicated to running in behind, and it looks it. They had no answer for him whatsoever.
Yeah.
Toluca, this is Toluca. This is a Mexican, side, a really quality Mexican side, right? So, yeah, he's looked great, and he came in and beat the whole defense. The goalkeeper made a save, and it popped right back to Almada, who had a sitter just to put it over the goalkeeper, and he got it over the goalkeeper, but also over the goal. I don't anticipate he's going to miss that too often.
Yeah.
And he looked like a little bit like, oh, the game started?
So, do you want to go to the tactical board and talk a little bit about what you'd like to see?
Yes, we can.
Looks like Nick is in a conference call or something.
So let's actually start then by, can you call up the picture?
Sure.
I want to talk about two different things, and we can start with two photographs that I took during the AmFam Cup.
Let's see. Okay.
AmFam Cup.
Okay.
Are you
The
still-
first one is that picture, which is this
See how this goes?
literally a picture I took just before kickoff, right? So in this picture, it's a little bit hard to see, but what hopefully those of you on the YouTube channel can see is that we have the opening kickoff. We're in red and Toluca's in white. And what's interesting is that we have the standard, what you would expect. All three of our strikers are, either on the ball or up front. But what's interesting is that Lennon is standing at midfield as the right back. Okay?
Yeah.
So what that tells you is that obviously Lennon is clearly dedicated. Now, this was a setup play where they played it back and tried to play over the top. I don't get this because if you had to pick, Mikey Dobbs, between two players who we were going to try in the opening kickoff to send the ball over top, who could run real fast, beat a guy physically one-on-one, and gain possession, would you pick A, Brooks Lennon, or B, Araujo?
Raguzan. He should go charging up the right side.
That's
His
interesting.
beautiful bald head. But no, yeah, it definitely should be Araujo.
Right. So, and you might say, well, Araujo's going there too, but if Brooks Lennon goes running up with Araujo, he's just going to bring a defender over,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, what's interesting about this picture is that not only that's that, and that indicates that there's that's our focus, that Lennon is going to be very attacking, right? But if you look at the three backs in this picture, right, Gutman, Parata, and Cobb, because Robinson wasn't playing, but presumably it would be Robinson normally, what you can see is that they are set up in a normal center back two and a left back, right? So
Yeah.
normally, if you're going to say send your right back forward, you would have those three players shift. If they're not willing to do it even on a kickoff, right, when you have a play set and everybody on your team presumably knows that's going to happen, does that suggest you're going to do it in a game?
No.
It's a really
trick
weird
question.
thing to see, right? Because Lennon is standing right on the half-field line. We're about to kick off going forward, right? And we have three backs in the back, as you would expect, right? Now, granted, and this is my counter to this, is that we did not see a lot of Gutman and Lennon both being forward, so that's a plus.
Yeah.
But during the game,
Actually, a little less dual airplanes, at least
Yeah.
one airplane at a time.
one airplane at a time. I agree. There should be, what we need is an air traffic controller who controls which airplane is going and which airplane is staying, right? But in any case, that's a good thing, right? I think that suggests that we might be more inclined to leaving 3 in the back. But the interesting thing is when we had 3 in the back, which was more often, most teams would have them shift over to a 3 where 1 center, 1 right, 1 left. And we never really looked like that. We just looked like we were like, well, Lennon's still responsible for that.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Anyway, okay, so that's one thing. And then let's go to the second picture because it shows you, and I'll show it to you on the tactical board too, so even if you can't see it on this picture. So I took this picture during play sometime, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes into the first half. This was all of our starters, right? So Toluca has the ball, right? And they have the ball basically somewhere around right middle of the field, and they're on their left side, okay? So as we talked about all of last year, right?
Yeah.
If you look at our back 4, they are so pinched over, right? So particularly the position of Gutman, right? So they only have one guy. They have 2 guys forward. They have a left forward and they have a center forward, okay? Right, so the left forward is being marked by Lennon. Lennon's pretty close to him. That's fine. They have one guy in the center. So we have Cobb and Parata right next to him. I think in this case it's Parata who's open and Cobb is standing right next to him. And Gutman has come all the way in. Now, you might say that's a decent position when there's nobody there. But if you notice, what has Toluca done with their right back? Can you see that?
He's out wide.
Yes, he's almost standing with his heels on the touchline, right? And he is literally the only player almost in the entire half of that field. If you draw a line straight from goal to goal, he's the only player on the right side of the field.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the things that I saw over and over and over from both Lennon and Gutman is they are committed to pinching in as far as possible to help out the center backs. And the guy responsible for marking that is Caleb Wiley. So if you notice, the closest guy to him is actually Caleb Wiley. And Caleb Wiley is standing in a weird stance because he's looking over there.
Yeah.
He's not actually marking him, but he clearly was assigned to mark him. He was looking over that, right? So we are playing a front 3, Mikey Dubs, okay? So if you're playing a front 3, right? Particularly what you want from a front 3 is that you got to have outside guys who are fast enough and forward enough to get in behind people. Now, we have that. God bless, thank God, right? We have Araujo. We have Etienne, who presumably can do that.
And Wiley.
And we have Caleb Wiley, who can do that, right? So that's awesome, right? But if we're asking our right and left forward to mark in behind our right and left back, let's go to the tactical board because this is what happens.
Tactical board. Let me get there.
I probably have to.
All right. Add scene.
Tactical board.
I feel like we need like some sort of button to press to.
So we
get
apologize that somehow we lost the names of all of our lane 9 players, so they're just numbers now and they're not their real numbers. So, but in this case, where Atlanta United is in red and we're playing a team in yellow, we'll call them Toluca, right? So what we saw, I have set this up to be, although it's flipped from where the picture is, but very similar to the formation that I took the picture of. So our 2 center backs, Parata and Cobb, are right there marking their forward. Our right back is Lennon, who's marking their left forward. Our right back is all the way over here, number 4. That's Lennon, right? Our 2 center backs are 2 and 3. That's Cobb and Parata. And I have Gutman all the way where he is in that picture. I think he was a little closer to here. But in any case, the Toluca right back has gone all the way forward. And it's actually Caleb Wiley in here who's responsible for marking him there. Okay? So right now, the ball is where it is in the picture. If they either play back or he switches it directly, but in any case, if they play this long ball out here, it is technically, it looks like it's not the job of Gutman to go there. It's actually the job of Wiley to come back here.
Yeah.
Okay? So the problem I have with this is, so let's say Wiley does an amazing job and he wins the ball, right? Who is Wiley supposed to be outletting to?
Tell me.
Wiley.
Wiley to Wiley. So
We've said this now twice, right?
So who's that to?
Yeah,
now?
because Wiley he's our left forward in a front three, right? So he's supposed to be forward enough, and now I would like him to be right over here, so he's really easily available, but he could be up here, whatever. But he's supposed to be here playing the ball and here receiving the ball, right? So that doesn't work, right? So if he has to track back all the way to here, right, what is the point of playing as a front three?
Yeah.
Where did our front three go? Because now the only possibility is for him to dribble 50 yards or to try and play in the middle to Josetu or...
So what's your solution here?
Well, my solution is that Wiley as a front three should not be marking anybody up there, right? So all we have to do is Gutman be responsible instead of holding the hand...
Yeah.
Instead of holding...
We're ready for Nick, yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. I'll take a beer. Absolutely.
Always. Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you. I'm good.
Yeah, 2 beers. We're at a brewery.
I mean, this
Thanks,
is
Billy.
awesome. I like this recording at a
People
brewery
getting us
thing.
beers. Yeah, this
Billy
is great.
was one of our early guests
Yeah,
on the
big
podcast
supporter, yeah.
who's grabbing us a beer.
All right.
Thankfully, somebody's taking care of us.
So, if our center backs are in normal position, then we really don't need three players marking their front forward, right? So that way, Gutman can be more out here, right? So when they play all the way across, it's Gutman here,
Yeah.
right? So then when Gutman wins the ball, right, now who's open?
I can't see it.
That's Wiley out on
This
the
is
wide.
the problem with our setup. I can't see anything
I'm
either.
sorry. But anyway, Wiley I left forward, right? And he is super available. And if he's done a good job, which I would like him to do, and not be all the way up here, if he's dropped back a little bit, now he gets the ball and gets to get on the front foot and run at their back four, which is what we want.
Yeah. Wiley running at people, especially late in the game, is what we want.
Amen.
So the thing that drove me crazy tactically in this game is we were so far pinched in that our forwards were responsible for tracking their backs who were overlapping all the way into our defense. And that meant that when we won the ball, there was no forward to play to outlet to, right? In what system do you want Araujo and Wiley tracking in instead of Gutman?
So we're going into this season with a whole fragmented team that has not spent a lot of time playing with any sort of cohesion. We don't know what the playoff system is going to look like. We don't know what our striker is going to be looking like with I would say if there's one level of stability that we've had, right, it's been Araujo and Almada, at least on the field together.
And they've looked terrific.
And they've looked good.
They look
So
like
that's
they're
a
ready
positive.
to go. So there's a positive.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys, if we don't get the spacing wrong and we just let them play, those guys are good enough, honestly, to keep us, in playoff contention by themselves.
Yeah.
They're that good.
Yeah, and I feel like if Abram and Parata and Miles kind of stay healthy and Gutman, and even though we don't love Lennon on the right, can, stay stable, we should be able to not give up goals too, even though we've given up a bunch of goals in preseason. We shouldn't be. Sosa back after 2 games. I don't know, but what
I
about
don't know.
Carmen, what are your
I'm
thoughts?
sensing some positivity coming from you guys. I'm liking this.
But no, I mean, the thing is like, Ibarra and Josetu aren't bad players. They've yet to prove that they're good or great, but they seem like they're solid enough. And if they can progress, that midfield that I'm still worried about, the midfield is still a worry, particularly from the defensive transitioning up into Almada and, again, not putting them in those positions to recover for the fullbacks. If we can prevent that from happening, then maybe they can stay in the center of the park and do their job.
Yeah, I mean, again, I say, if you simply if you just kept it simple and not overthought the tactics in the back, so that we have not just always 3 players in the back, but 3 guys who are playing together, equally lined up, marking those guys up, right? Then you can allow, as we talked about last week, Sosa to go hunting, right? If Sosa goes hunting and he wins the ball in the midfield, we will be an amazing team, right? I mean, it's actually interesting because as a Man United fan, and Carmen, I know you're a Man United fan too, so, Man United has struggled for a number of years, right? And people said, the same thing that they're saying to Atlanta United, they just don't have the players, right? But then they switched the manager Ten Hag, and they were catastrophic in the first 3 games. He was like, we need a defensive midfielder. We need to have our outside back stop pinching in. He got a really good center back in Lisandro Martinez. That's all he did. He didn't revamp the whole squad.
Well, Nunez is the only other X factor there.
Nunez, no.
That's Liverpool.
Oh, my bad. Yeah. He can't score.
You're talking about maybe Anthony?
Yes, Anthony.
But Anthony hasn't even played that much recently, and he hasn't done that much while he was here. Not. But if you did that, who is now carrying Man United? It's Rashford, right? And people say Rashford has himself actually had a resurrection, right? I don't believe that. Maybe he's playing a little better or whatever, but I don't believe that Rashford is suddenly a different player.
I 100% agree with you on this, by the way.
What's different is that he is getting the ball in really good spots that Rashford has always been able to beat people in. Casemiro, the number of times he has won the ball going this way when the other team is going that way, and quickly gotten it to Rashford, and suddenly, boom, goal.
I think, Rashford is a great example of, he's not the player that ever can take the team on his shoulders. But I tell you what, if you play him into an opportunity to score, he's got composure and he'll finish it most of the time. And that's, I think, the difference you're seeing with Man United right now is that they keep giving him his opportunities. And when they're clear-cut opportunities, he's got the composure to finish 90% of the time.
So I think Atlanta United last year and Atlanta United this year is a lot like Man United. We've had good players on paper, and the coach just hasn't figured out a way to recycle the ball high enough up the field to make the players dangerous.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would point out about Man United that I would advise Pineda to watch at Atlanta United is that Ten Hag, first of all, he stopped under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They had all the outside backs pinching in again, and it cost Man United many times, just like it is Atlanta United, right? He stopped that. The moment he got in, they stopped doing that. They're more outside, and so instead of giving a guy, and I'll show it to you here, right? If we go back to the tactical board, right? When you pinch in here, if you take Gutman and move him all the way in here, what you're saying is you give the guy out here, and a lot of times they can get to here, right? That is the most dangerous place to serve a ball from, because that player now has 4 options. They can play chip over to the back post, they can play near post behind the guys, they can play it back to the top of the box, or they can even go for goal themselves, right? And that's a nightmare to defend, right? So the problem that we have had is, why pinch in? If you have Gutman stay out here, and any ball that they try to play from the middle, if they're trying to play from here in the middle all the way out wide to here, you can close it down, and now suddenly they're no longer dangerous.
Yeah. So, Dave, do you think that we are going to win on Saturday? Going straight there.
I'm going to go to Carmen first. What do you think, Carmen?
Oh, I don't think we're going to win.
Really?
I don't. I don't know why. I feel like I'm becoming pessimistic while y'all are becoming very optimistic. But I just don't. There's nothing to excite me about. But San Jose is awful, right?
They're not good. They were
not good?
pretty far down the table last year, if not the worst. Yeah.
Glass empty.
Glass empty. Carmen is glass empty.
I'm glass empty.
No.
I'm glass
Dave,
empty.
where are you for the starting game?
Come on.
Glass empty?
Oh, darn it.
So I'm going to predict that we struggle and we get a tie at home on opening day.
Ooh, I'll take a tie.
No, you won't.
I'll
I mean,
ta-
why?
because I think we're gonna lose.
San
I'll
Jose
take a tie.
is a terrible team. They're coming into our home field. I mean, if you look at our squad versus their squad on paper, they've had a new coaching change last year, right? Like, there is nothing good about San Jose. We have an easy, God bless, an easy schedule to start the
We
season.
do.
First 3 games
We
are easy.
do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Until we play Portland, right, which is the fourth game.
I'm going to go with a 2-2 tie.
I
What are
like
you
it.
going to go with, Mikey Dubs?
I think that sounds extremely reasonable.
Damn it.
There's no evidence it's painting any other picture. Now, the only thing is like we will have players on the field starting together that have never started together. That's the only X factor here, even though
Okay.
we're going to be missing So we're going to have Etienne, presumably.
He's definitely going to play. I
Okay.
think he's going to come off the bench.
Okay, you think so? So that means Wiley's starting then?
I think Wiley's going to start. I mean,
Okay.
again, you never know with Pineda, but
I don't
if
think
I were
so.
the coach and a guy has only played 30 minutes in preseason, I'm not sure I would start him in the first match. I'd have him coming off the bench still, but especially because in the case of Etienne, you have a very, very capable backup in Wiley, who's a terrific player.
That's the thing. I have no idea what Pineda is going to...
It's a crapshoot.
It is, like, it seems clear to us, right? Like if you're going to say Guzan, give him the shot to start the year coming off the ACL, okay, great. Of course, I think the rest of the back line pretty much paints itself, as we talked about. You got Gutman, Miles, Parata, I think, is the safer bet at center back with Abram needing to work his way in, and Lennon. And then in front of that, for me, it is Ibarra and Josetu in front of him with Almada, Etienne, and Aruj out wide. And then I suppose, was it Jackson Conway?
I got to presume that if Papa Giorgio is ready to go, that he's the starter.
Which would be fabulous.
Yeah, put him
So
in.
If he's available, absolutely, right? So to me, okay, so let's presume that that's the starting lineup, and we do have Papa Giorgio. I think if we have, I say we win if we've got the Greek.
One thing is interesting about Pineda, I was going to say, is he seems to think preseason is a chance to just try stuff.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, when we went into last season, I don't know, we could go back to that, the preseason podcast that we recorded. We didn't have any idea that Tyler Wolff was going to be the starter on day one, right? When we saw that walking into the stadium on the first day, we were all like, huh, what?
Right.
You know, and I think that, to be honest, he doesn't see the preseason as what I would see it is. I like getting my team ready to go, getting them playing together, establishing what the starting lineup is going to be. He sees it as a chance. Everybody gets a little fit. We get to see. We try out a lot of things, and then going into the starting game, then I decide who's going to be the starters, which to me is a nuts way to run preseason.
So here's what I think. I think if George Yakimakis, Papa Georgia, is able to start on Saturday, that we win.
Okay.
If he does not, we'll get that 2-2 tie. The one thing I liked about the interview.
I was assuming he was starting when I called the 2-2 tie.
Now,
I'm a little more hopeful with some Papa Giorgio.
Yeah, the guy's got a little attitude. He's got a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, but I've never seen him play with Atlanta United.
It doesn't matter. I like his attitude. Like I honestly, I think that's kind of what we're missing in terms of even Joseph wasn't able to bring last year. It's like just a little bit of arrogance, and this guy's got it.
He does.
He's got it. Now, he could fall flat on his face with that arrogance, but he certainly seems to have it in spades in terms of, like, not afraid of the mission here.
He has that forward mentality.
Yeah.
And I love it. I like it.
The other thing I was going to say about Pineda is he seems to think not only preseason is for tinkering and getting people shot, but he actually thinks that, me as a coach, I'm like, I've seen these players for a long time. I have a good idea. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to change my mind. As they start the season goes on, I might see something or whatever, but I have a good idea. If some guy plays really well for 20 minutes in preseason, it's not going to change my mind about who the starting lineup is. But that's not how Pineda does it. I mean, Pineda seems to think that, you play well in preseason, you get rewarded, including you get to start on opening day, right? And so, for example, in St. Louis, right, who does he start? I mean, the guy who was the star in that game, the AmFam Cup, in the second half, was 17-year-old Brennan.
Yeah, Brennan.
Oh, yeah.
Right, who has never played anywhere on the U.S., nothing, right? He's 17. He's just been in the academy, right? And he was terrific, and he scored a goal, a terrific goal.
But that's not preparing for the start of the season.
And then he gets a starting role in St. Louis. He started that game. So you could honestly see him if he did well in that St. Louis game, which we have no idea because we couldn't see,
Not a clue.
you would say Pineda's he's earned it, and he's the starter. That to me sounds nuts.
If Brennan is he Wayne Rooney? I mean, what?
No,
Yeah.
no, that's the thing. It's not like you have a guy.
17.
It's one thing if you've got
Wayne
a
Rooney
Wayne
came on
Rooney
for Everton
or a
at 17.
a Cristiano Ronaldo who everybody knows is looking like
Right.
the next thing.
Right.
But if that's the case, right? Wayne Rooney, I am sure, when he played at 16 for Everton, that preseason, right? There is no chance that he was the coach is look, he's 16, he might be ready to go. Let's play him in preseason, play him every game. And I'm sure he played well the entire preseason. He played with the starters the entire preseason.
Right.
But that's coming from making a decision about a guy and then going with it in preseason. So if for example, we had a guy let's say they thought Brennan was going to be the next superstar, then he would say, we've been talking him up. He was done all this stuff in the youth thing. Now we think he's kind of ready. And from the very beginning in preseason, he would be playing in the things. That's not what happened.
No.
He played really well in the second half with all the 17-year-olds.
Right. Yep.
Right? And he scored a goal. To be really honest, he didn't play that well besides scoring the goal.
Oh, really?
Now, all the fans voted him for an MVP of that game because they're 17-year-old. The kid who scores the goal.
Always
Who
vote
wouldn't
for
do
the
that?
17-year-old
Yeah.
who scores the goal. Yeah.
But I think Pineda actually thought that's legit. And, and you would say, look, he would argue probably, Toluca brought in a bunch of their starters in the second half. And again, if I were Atlanta United, I would have been livid.
Yeah.
Right? Toluca came in, they brought 3 starters against our starters, and they brought a bunch of their starters in the second half against our 17-year-olds. What's up with that?
Can I say something about Pineda?
Oh, yay.
Look, I do this. You do this as a hobby here in front of the cameras that we've set up here.
Here in the beautiful
But
Wild Heaven setting, I would have to
these-
say.
Wild Heaven Brewery is absolutely amazing right now. But have you seen some of these postseason conference things with Pineda?
Yes.
And what is it with him?
Well, I've read to you a number of the
Does
quotes.
why is it that when he gets interviewed right before, have you watched him? He grabs a pen and he gets all nervous and he starts writing off to the side. Have you noticed this thing?
I have not.
Watch it on YouTube. It is like a tick almost with this guy. He they're about to ask him a question. He gets a paper and he's scribbling nonsense because there's nothing to write. They're about to ask him a question,
Right.
And he's just got nervous energy that he's doing doodles, and I'm to me that is if any coach in England was doing what he's doing in terms of behaviors, he would get crucified.
If we could get into the press conference, maybe we could zoom in and see what the actually thing he's writing on the paper would be interesting.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. We wouldn't care if he doodles or not if he's winning.
Yeah,
That's-
if he could
if
coach,
he
who
could
the hell
coach,
cares?
you
I don't
can
care if
doodle
he's the
all you
most
want.
nervous guy in the whatever. And you would say, look,
Totally.
okay, if he's not good at public whatever,
Yeah.
who
Right.
the hell cares about that?
Keep it rolling.
1,000%.
If he's good with the team.
Yes, so that is my issue right now. Is the record is bad. The nervous energy for me is coming off wrong as incompetence is the best way I can put it.
And excuses, excuse after excuse. He gets asked questions this preseason, right? They say, okay, tell me about how you think about this team. What do you think is going to be good for the team? And he says, what I'd like to start with is all the injuries from last year. You're like, that is not what you were asked even about.
No.
Talk about like him being
his words in these interviews have, for me personally, eroded trust. Like even the Frank de Boer, he was never the right culture for Atlanta United. Heinze, the arrogance and firmness, right? Like not a good culture fit as well. But neither one of the de Boer or the Heinze thing was like, oh, this guy doesn't. I never was like, these guys don't understand the game in terms of how to coach it. And I'm getting a little of that vibe every time Pineda is in front of a microphone trying to at least articulate what's really happening. And it's just...
Those guys also were so confident to the point where it sometimes inhibited them, right? You were like, maybe you could see that something wasn't working, but they're like, no, I know this is the best way to do it, right?
Right.
Yeah, where Pineda, this is his first head coaching job, and he's clearly nervous in the role.
You're right. He does seem very nervous. That's a great way to describe him.
Yeah,
Whenever he's talking in front of a camera.
But it's second year. He got rid of the guys that, supposedly were undermining him, who had more credibility in the locker room than he did, right? Joseph Martinez, clearly, the team was listening to more than Pineda, right?
Yeah.
And that's a problem, right? Because you got to command the room, right? You got to command the team. And, I think that, but he won that war, right? The club supported him, and he won that war, right? So you would think that he would be more confident this year, like, okay, now I got my guys.
Right.
Yeah. We're going to have Nick over here in 15.
All right.
We're going to be able to talk for another 15.
I'm sure y'all can figure out something.
We can even invite some of the crowd out here to come sit
Yeah.
in. We can ask them about the preseason if you want.
Yeah. Hey, Billy. Send him over. Come on over.
You want to come join?
Yeah.
Ask the questions? The fans are rating the podcast. I
feel
like
like
I
it.
need the headphones because Lord knows I'm deaf.
I feel like just
With
for the
the
excitement.
headphones, you can really hear.
Danny Rojas!
Rojas!
He's pretty smart, just so you know.
It's Billy Ellick, folks.
So much better than the first time I did one of these.
Oh yeah, we've amped it
Wow,
up. Here.
we're at the brewery, so that's way better, right?
And I think I was responsible for whatever you were drinking currently.
Yeah, we appreciate
are.
you keeping us fueled here.
And we're doing product placement. Serve your neighbor. There you go.
All right.
So
Wild Heaven is our sponsor, so
What are you going to put me on the spot for?
No, we were putting you on the spot in terms of what's your gut feeling for the season, and first and foremost, do we win our home opener?
San Jose
Against San Jose, a really
Saturday
bad team.
at home.
You gotta get the 3 points there.
You got to, right? But will we? What like honestly, what's your if you take a step back and are like, hey, are we going to get it done?
So from a strictly personnel perspective, I mean, has the ship been righted from an injury?
So
I'm not that close
Have
to
you
it.
been following the signings? So have you know that we signed
Apparently some dude
Yakimakis?
Yeah, the Greek
Greek
dude, I
kid,
get it.
Yeah.
They should have gone for the Japanese kid from Celtic instead because he's the one that's really getting
He's
it done
really
this year.
good. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, look him up. That's a real thing.
Okay.
He's at Celtic still.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's who they
Yeah.
dropped Yakimakis for.
Oh.
The
But
young
but
Japanese kid.
you have to temper that of players coming from the Scottish league because it really is just Celtic and Rangers. It's a two-horse town.
But
it always has
the
been.
previous year, he played in the Eredivisie in the Dutch for a team, VVV, that got relegated.
Yeah.
But he was the leading scorer in the Eredivisie on a team that got relegated.
Yeah, well,
So
that's an anomaly kind of thing.
That's
too.
impressive.
It is.
Who's the young fellow that they just signed? He's all about 6'3", if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. We were just talking about him.
Yeah,
he's not actually signed yet.
It's not signed. Okay,
he's about to be signed.
But he also went
Miguel
16
Buste?
games last year and didn't
Miguel
score.
Berry, yeah.
Miguel Berry.
Yeah, so the striker that doesn't score.
The striker that doesn't score, yeah.
That just speaks.
I have to say, one of the things that really annoyed me about even the press coverage of that when it hasn't even happened yet, they said it's the kind of striker that Pineda really likes because he's 6'3".
Right.
And I'm like, maybe want a striker who's good.
Right. How about a
Can
striker
score.
that actually
How
puts it in
tall
the-
he is.
puts
I mean,
it in-
Martinez was really short, and he scored a ton of goals,
Exactly.
right? I mean, come on.
Exactly. So we'll see. I'm just wondering, for example, do we feel that Miles is actually back? I think it's.
That's
it's
a
too,
great question.
I think it's too early to
see
tell,
it.
right?
I didn't think that he was back when. I mean, to be fair, we only really ever saw the Chattanooga game in the preseason. So they went to Mexico. They didn't. We got a
They
Facebook,
broadcasted it like sideways on the.
It was a Facebook feed that was sideways, and then it turned off in the second minute.
There's very little video evidence to judge from.
So there's that.
Yeah.
And he didn't play in the AmFam Cup at Mercedes-Benz the other day. He did play in St. Louis behind, again, closed doors. So
Right.
we really haven't seen. We don't know. But I will say in Chattanooga, he didn't do much. He didn't whatever. But it didn't look to me like he was explosive the way you might expect him to be.
And we were talking about early, Billy, that shambolic that MLS doesn't even have a playoff system decided
That was
on.
exactly what
How
we were
ridiculous
just
is-
talking about.
how ridiculous is that?
The words that I used were, it's so JV representative of the structure of the league. Like, single A baseball has their act together organizationally better than MLS. It's a shambolic
But
embarrassment.
We are also saying, but you know that it is obviously motivated by this new Apple TV deal, right, to get more inventory into the channel. So they're trying to get 25 more games in.
Sure.
Is the whole motivation behind not what's good for the league, not what's good for competition. It's about media inventory
and has zero interest in what the fan is actually. We actually qualify as nothing. We're not even on the even on the plot.
No.
So it'll be interesting what they announce in hopefully the next 48 hours, because you got to figure they got to announce it in the next 48 hours. I mean, the season
starts.
You would think.
But back to your original question, I just can't see San Jose coming in and getting a result, getting a point. I just can't.
We were thinking
They're not a good side.
They're not a good team.
We were saying a tie feels kind of reasonable.
That would be
it kind of
Debbie
expected,
Downer.
right?
Yeah,
it would be Debbie Downer, but kind of like
It would be awful.
It'd be awful. We agree. It would be absolutely awful, but not totally unexpected, right?
I would concur with
Well,
that.
one of the
That's a good
things
way to
about
put
it
it.
that we can talk about, so Atlanta United has a history of signing people extremely late. Almada, for example, when he came in, had to go back to South America to get a visa. He missed the opening 2 or 3 games, right? They had all day to sign a new striker, right? They had to wait, I guess, till Martinez left or whatever, but they had it. You should have had it lined up or whatever. But here's the thing. We are once again with Giakoumakis, right, in the case where the visa is supposed to come through tomorrow, and he has played 0 minutes with the team. He's been training with the team, but he has played 0 minutes with the team in preseason. And so that means 2 things as a fan. One, once again, how do we know whether we're ready to go? And 2, on opening day, you don't even know whether he's going to play.
So where's the accountability for Bocanegra on this?
Yeah,
I mean, does this not kind of fall in his swim lane? Like,
Well,
he's got it.
I think so, yeah, because clearly there were negotiations happening with George Giakoumakis early, 2 months ago, right? And it was all about the money. It was all about the negotiations getting wrapped up quickly. And I do feel that whatever needed to happen in terms of making that faster, so that you get it signed. If that's your guy, then just get it done. We got plenty of money with Arthur Blank, right? So if it's money, get him signed, get him over here, get the visa stuff sorted out so he's in camp earlier. I do think that unless there was some other guy that they were looking at, that, they should have wrapped this deal up at least 2-3 weeks earlier.
100% agree. It just feels unnecessarily forced and kind of rammed. And to your point, it's like yeah, he's been training with the team, great.
Yeah.
But has he had any real live fire? Not that they're really looking at what they've done anyway. It's really not that much. I mean, last week's game was quite underwhelming, but we kind of knew that was going to be that way anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that second half was pretty much the Atlanta United 2s.
It wasn't even the 2s. It was sort of our academy team.
So there you
Almost.
go.
I mean,
there you go.
Baby Atlanta United.
But yeah, it was mostly 2s.
Because literally the kid that scored was like 17, I think.
17.
Yeah.
And he
Brennan.
then started against St. Louis in our last preseason game.
Yeah,
Which-
it unfortunately feels like the first, I don't know if we were just to call it out there, the first 3 to 4 games of the season are going to be like trial by fire. No pun intended, right?
Because Sosa's suspended for 2 games, so we don't have him, and
So it just feels like a level of underwhelmingness is going to be coming out of Saturday's result.
So, Billy, tell us about Wild Heaven Brewery and the situation here. For fans of Atlanta United haven't been here to have a cold beer on the patio on a beautiful day here.
Yeah, it's fantastic here in Avondale Estates, and I know over on the west side, with their sister location there, they just kind of they've captured a really great vibe here. They've invested in the facility here. It looks nothing like it did even just a year ago.
Yeah.
So it really it provides a great family-friendly environment, an incredible pop-up food opportunities here that are on a weekly basis. They kind of rotate, and which is a little bit different than on the west side. The west side, they've got their turnkey food provisions there, but here there's always something new, and it's always something really good. So it's a great.
I'm gonna have to get on whatever the griddle's got happening over there. I haven't even seen what they got cooking today.
I know our friend and colleague there was stuffing his pie hole with chicken wings when I got there. So there's that.
Excellent.
But yeah, it's great. You guys are doing a great job with this. Let's make this a regular.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna have to broadcast more from Wild Heaven, and appreciate you popping on here.
Marco?